Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference. There are 14 participants in the conference.
Mr. Klinkhart, Ms. Craig, are you back online?
We are.
I figured you must be, since you're the host. I wouldn't have been brought in if you weren't. Ms. Wilson, are you back online?
I am.
Okay. Mr. Schulte, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online? Okay, we'll wait another minute or so. I don't know about you guys. I'm having a beautiful sunny day in Juneau, and I can't get out.
No, it's gorgeous down here on the peninsula as well. I actually cut my grass during the lunch break.
And I got a nice run in on my lunch break, so it's beautiful.
Oh, good. Mr. Schulte, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online? Okay, we'll wait another minute or two. Mr. Schulte, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online? Mr. Schulte, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online?
Bruce is back.
Okay, Bruce. Mr. DeShock, are you online? I saw something on one of my media accounts at GCI was having trouble, but I didn't know if that was Juneau or Anchorage. But Mr. DeShock, are you back online?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right, so our board is back. It is 1:01 on 6/10/2020. Before lunch, we finished up with license 23989 Next Degree, where we approved the license. We are now on to the products for a marijuana product manufacturing facility. For your information, if any of you keep notes, this was tab 30 last meeting, and there were 31 products. Most of them, a lot of them are consumable products. A lot of them are in-house. Some are concentrates, some are not. I think this was done before we had sort of asked for them to be done in an order. So I don't know exactly how you all want to proceed. I have some questions on some of the products, but I will leave the direction of how we proceed up to the board. But the product list is in the tab 10, and so we can take them in the order that's in the tab 10 is fine with me. So, desire of the board. I see nobody wants to do anything.
I was just contemplating that headache I'm going to have when we're done with this.
Mr. Coleman, are you back online? I should have asked.
Yes, Chair, I am. Kirby
Okay,
Coleman
thank
here.
you. In case we have any questions on the specific products, and I have some on several, but while all of you contemplate how you want to proceed, maybe I will ask my questions, and then we can proceed. Mr. Coleman, on the first
I'm
product...
getting all the directions done for the staff.
somebody's
Yeah,
talking
once I
about
get that, then I'll
directions to
probably head
staff,
out.
and can you mute your phone, please?
I'm listening to the...
Can you mute your phone, please, whoever's listening to us? Mr. Coleman, on the first product, Rico Rossi Langira, my notes from the last meeting was that I did not see any listed under ingredients, any marijuana product, and I did not see any listing in the ingredient list on the label. And maybe you can let me know which of your concentrates or what is the marijuana product in that Langira.
It is actually a mix of a few different concentrates, one being a boiled water extract, and the other being infused. So I'm just looking at there. The other being a infused hash extract, and those are being mixed into. So I'm not sure how that got to the packet without there being any marijuana products in the ingredients itself.
Okay, well, we'll probably, if we approve that, then we'll make that part of the delegation, and that needs to be corrected.
Yes, understood.
Okay. And then the other note that I had was on the blueberry lemon muffins. And I guess the marijuana product in that is the TND sugar, which is one of the other products that we have that we will approve later. Is that correct?
Yes, TND butter or butter, yes.
Okay. And I wasn't sure that I saw any of that in the ingredient list on the label. I don't see TND or marijuana product on the label ingredients. So, again, I just think that needs to get corrected in any delegation.
So in the ingredients list, yeah, it's TND sugar, which is the infused sugar, and then it says the TND butter, which is the infused butter.
Right.
As far as, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I see that on the ingredients list once I look more closely, but it's still not in the ingredient list on the label, but you'll need to get that corrected anyway. Okay. That one checks out. The other one that I had, yes.
Yeah, just on the sample labels, I believe with guidance from the DEC was that because we have sugar in the ingredients and we have butter in the ingredients and we have marijuana in the ingredients. So those are what make up any one of those products is marijuana, butter, or sugar, and all three of those are on the sample label itself.
Okay. Well, I'll let staff work on that one because I don't see that, but we'll wait to see if this gets approved. My other question is on TND High Pop. And basically this is a popcorn that has coconut oil and what is popped in. My question had to do with your packaging is basically a 32-ounce glass jar with 10 servings in each jar. I don't know about you, but I don't think that I would open up a 32-ounce jar and only take one serving out of popcorn while I'm watching a movie. I really question whether
And version of those.
whether
What
it's
are the kids doing? Name that
appropriate.
again?
Mr. Jaime, are you still on?
Where's she going?
Oh, that's right. Mr. Jaime?
Does Chris remember? Wait, hold on. Oh, sorry, sir.
Mr.
Say
Jaime,
again?
I'm hearing your side conversation. So anyway, I was just curious about the packaging and whether you thought of any other way to package already popped popcorn other than a 32-ounce jar.
Yeah, when we were looking at this product, it was considered to have a bigger volume because, like you said, it's going to be, for me, I like to eat popcorn, and hopefully those that are consuming this are able to responsibly know their dosage limit and responsibly consume the amount that fits their desired limitations for their body. And we're kind of counting on the consumers to take that responsibility upon themselves as any other marijuana product out there on the open market today. So as long as the servings are clearly delineated with the markings that we have on the jar, I feel like it's within regulation and completely within purview of any other products out on the market today.
Okay. Let's see. I think I had another couple of questions on second review. I think pumpkin muffins and salty caramel. Again, the labeling says cannabis. It doesn't say whether it's infused butter, sugar, or coconut oil. I think that needs to be the actual cannabis ingredient, the concentrates you're going to put in there. And so I would just ask if these get approved that those things be part of the delegation for staff. Be aware when they see the actual final product and the pictures of it, which you'll be required to do. So those were my specific questions. Is there any other questions from the board, or is there any motion from any board member related to any or all of these 30 products?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schulte, or Mr. DeShock,
yeah.
You were on first.
Yeah, I had questions about TND milk, as far as what went into it in the packaging. It's another glass jar.
Okay, that's product 18, TND milk.
In my primary.
Mr. Coleman, do you have an answer?
Yep.
Can you repeat the question?
My question would be on the TND milk and the milk that's going into it, how it's extracted, and because it's got the shelf, a shorter shelf life than maybe other items, unless I'm not understanding it well.
Right. So it does say on there, it says perishable. Yes, 5 to 7 days date of milk. So I guess I'm still wondering what the question itself is.
I think the question is, in the glass jar, you show an undelineated jar. You said 16-32-ounce glass jars with metal lids, which is a little different description than the other times when you said that the metal lids would be childproof. And the sample label, at least on my copy, is blank. So maybe you could explain exactly how this will be marketed if it only has a shelf life of 5 to 7 days, and how you would delineate the dosage. And I think that probably is his question.
Yeah, Mr.
Right, okay.
One thing before the answer, so you won't got to answer it twice. My other was under the ingredients, but yeah, the chair's got it exactly right on the labeling. But in the ingredients, I was wondering whether or not there may be a requirement on more specific explanation of what the milk is, where it comes from, percentages, etc. So for labeling purposes, whether or not it meets requirements of other industries.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, we would have, so for one, the glass jar would be delineated with markings just like previous, just like the high pop. Also on the label, if it was made with a 2% milk, that would be something that would be put on. Also, whole milk. We didn't want to put specifically confine ourselves to a certain percentage milk base or a certain milk product itself. So we do plan on using multiple facets of milk to make this product. But that being said, would go on the final label. The sample label, I'm not sure why it's blank. I have, in my workings, I've had some issues uploading documents before that they have uploaded previous edited documents, and with my final document I have on my computer right now, I'm looking at it has the final label on it, and I'm looking at the pack, it doesn't. So that has an error that something did not upload correctly when I submitted the documents, I guess. Of course, this product
Can
going
I
to
say something?
Yeah.
Through the chair.
As far as the candy milk, it is considered a concentrate. It will not be something sold to consumers as just that. It will be used as a concentrate.
Who's speaking?
This is Jessie.
Okay.
Jessie Light.
Jessie Light.
She
Your
will be
relationship?
our product manufacturer manager. So these are her creations. So I have her online. Should have announced that sooner. That she's here for any questions as well.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
Well, that was my next question, because intended use says in-house baking / wholesale. So, I felt like we were getting into the discussion where I was getting confused when we started talking about the markings on the bottle. Since this is for in-house baking use, it shouldn't be marked for 5 milligram servings, right?
No, if it was for in-house, yes. But this says wholesale, so I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. DeShock, did that get your question answered?
It does. I still have concerns just because I don't know exactly. I'll have to look at some of the other milk things real quickly as we're going through it. But my main concern was with my actual main concern was with the delineation between, is it 1%, is it 2%, is it whole milk, is it skim milk, where did the milk come from, the dates on the milk before it's produced, etc. Those types of things.
Okay. And then Mr. Schulte, you were next.
Yeah, thanks. Question, I'm looking at this TND BHO product, and I may not be reading it right, so I'm just going to ask the question. When I see BHO, I think butane hash oil, but the process seems to describe an extraction using Everclear. So is Everclear the extracting medium, or is that simply a vehicle for the final product? Maybe could you explain a little bit more about what that product is?
Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, it is an extract made with the Everclear is the extract, the solvent, the base for extracting the THC from the plant matter.
Okay, so why does it have BHO in the name? I guess that's the part that's confusing me. Because the BHO...
That's a good question for my sister. She's the one that named these. So.
Because it's a hard one to explain, and I might just have to change that. Because we're taking the Everclear, and then we are going to be evaporating it down. So it does come to a consistency of BHO. It's just not used with butane.
So there's no butane involved with the process, so there's no residual gases or anything. I mean, that's kind of confusing. I don't think it's the end of the world, but if a customer is looking at that based on prior experience at another store, it would be confusing.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is all in-house product.
Yeah,
well, so
again, it's an in-house product concentrate that it won't be for retail.
I think for purposes, Jesse, I would love to change the name of that, because BHO definitely means butane hash oil, and that's not, butane has nothing to do with this, so.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Schulte?
No, thank you.
Okay. And I would note that basically this is a product by using Everclear to change another product, the TND tincture, to something else. So, and we have yet to approve that product, but basically taking a already approved product, if it gets approved, and then changing it through another process. So it's all confusing to me, but anyway. So is there any board action that we want to take at this time on one or all or select of these products?
I would move to approve the whole slate with delegation.
Okay, there's a motion to approve all products on Next Degree license 23989. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Miller. With delegation?
Yes, because I think there were some legitimate questions about some labeling and
Yeah, it's
so forth
Adam
that
telling me, yeah, they're probably not
need to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any further discussion from the board on this motion? Okay, hearing none. Then Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
This one needs more time.
No.
We need prime time.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
No.
Boy. I'm going to be a no. And so the motion for all products, there are a lot of products on here I would be willing to vote for, but in total, not. So I'm not exactly sure how to proceed. I don't want to leave the person with no products approved, because I think there's some in here that we could approve.
Mr. Chair, this is
Mr. DeShock.
I was, I don't know exactly the procedure as you were saying, but maybe I would move for reconsideration of the list, but to split the list, those items that have been addressed in the previous conversation, to vote on those. Anything that has not been addressed, to re-vote on approval of those.
I'm just worried that it might rain.
So I think it would be, I don't know the total list,
it might not.
the milk, the BHO, to vote individually on the BHO, TND milk, and I can't remember all of them specifically, the ones that we talked about, but something to that effect.
Okay. All right. Mr. Schulte, you're usually better at this than other members. I would like to take a 3-minute, 5-minute break. Let Mr. Schulte go through the list, pick out the concentrates, the things that we have generally approved in the past, like the oils, tinctures, and some of those, and then see what we're left with.
You don't want to do the background anymore? It's a little soggy.
And so if we could take 5 minutes and ask Mr. Schulte to sort of break this down. He understands products better. And then we'll come back and split this up so that we can go through this list a little bit quicker that way. Is that okay with you, Mr. Schulte?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I'm on it.
Okay. All right. So let's take 5 minutes. I show it's 1:23. We'll come back about 1:28.
5 minutes.
Thank you. And there's some other side conversations going on. If people could mute their phones, we would appreciate it.
Oh yeah, that bad boy's done now. Yeah, let's give it that last squeeze.
Hey, can you hear us? We do.
I can hear somebody talking, yes.
Hey, who's still on the line?
I think we're all on the line, Mr. Schulte, but I think there's side conversations going on. People don't have it muted.
Okay, I was hoping I could catch them and let them know that their mic's still hot.
Yes. Are you ready, Mr. Schulte, with your list?
Couple more minutes. I'm getting there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schulte, just let us know when you're ready.
I'm almost there. I think I've actually got a pretty good breakdown. Just 4 more here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think I've got a breakdown here. I've actually broken it down into 3 different categories. I'll summarize those whenever you're ready.
Why don't you make the first motion with whatever category you want, and do it slowly so that I can mark off which products are included, and also so staff would have that information.
Sounds good. Okay, so I've attempted to break these down into three categories. The first one will be concentrates with no additional additives that are sort of a standalone product. The second one will be infused products, oils and so forth. And then the last group will be finished products, baked goods, for example. So I'll start with the first one, first set of 7. It looks like. So I move to approve the TND almond oil, TND avocado oil, TND BHO, TND bubble hash, dry ice bubble hash, TND tincture. I'm on to the last page now. TND tincture and TND tincture with Everclear. I believe those are all just essentially concentrates of different base.
So that's 7, 8 products?
7.
Okay. And that would be with delegation to make a change to the label on the TND BHO.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes, I would second that. I wanted to make sure that the TND milk was on there.
I can add. I didn't say that, but I think I missed that actually. Yeah. Well, actually, okay.
I think that would be like with the oils, the peanut oils and the coconut oils.
Yeah. I would propose to put that in the category of an infused product.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to approve TND almond oil, TND avocado oil, TND BHO, with a delegation that the title may change, product name, TND bubble hash, TND dry ice bubble hash, TND tincture, and TND tincture with Everclear. There was a second. Does everybody know what they're voting on?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. This is Jaime.
Mr. Jaime.
With all the oils, it refers to lecithin, and it doesn't describe if it's animal-based or plant-based. And I think that's pretty important. And that can be through delegation, but I think that does need to be on the labeling.
Okay. All right. When we get, okay, I think that we'll add that to the delegation then. Okay, so on the motion for approval of the items I just listed, Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. DeShock?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the next set of products, Mr. Schulte?
Okay. So the next set are infused products, several of which I believe are going to be actually a wholesale. Let me just check one right here. I want to look at the blueberry muffins real quick, make sure I didn't put this in the wrong category. Because it sounded like a finished product, but I think it's actually lost.
Blueberry lemon muffins, I think, are a finished product.
Yeah, that's what I thought by the name. Yes, okay, so yeah, I had those in the wrong category.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just move that down here. Okay, so then I move to approve the following infused products. The TND Rico Rossi Leangria, Berry High Syrups.
Just a second. Berry syrup. Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay.
Okay. TND butter.
Okay.
TND canola oil.
Okay.
TND coconut oil.
Okay.
And let me see this next one. I want to make sure I didn't put this in the wrong list also. Okay, I did, so we'll move on. The TND grapeseed oil.
Okay.
T&D High Pop.
And the next one?
T&D Honey.
Okay.
And, oops, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth to, okay, T&D Milk.
Okay.
T&D Olive Oil.
Okay.
T&D Peanut Oil.
Okay.
The Salty Creamy Sauce. Actually, let me leave that one off because I think that's actually a finished product.
Okay.
So I could peel the salty creamy caramel sauce off of there. Next one then would be the sesame oil.
Okay.
Vegetable oil. And walnut oil.
Okay.
So
is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second
again
for discussion.
Okay. Been seconded. So the motion is to approve Rico Rossi Langira, T&D Berry High Syrup, T&D Butter, T&D Canola Oil, T&D Coconut Oil, T&D Grapeseed Oil, T&D High Pop, T&D Honey, T&D Milk, T&D Olive Oil, T&D Peanut Oil, T&D Sesame Oil, T&D Vegetable Oil, and T&D Walnut Oil. Discussion, any comments or questions? Mr. Miller, you seconded for discussion. So
I did, and and Bruce kind of confused me, and that's okay because it's easily done. But this group was intended to be in-house use stuff. Is that what I heard? Or does it matter?
Mr. Schultz.
My expectation was that they could be used in-house or sold as a final product, but that they would ultimately be a component, for use in producing some other product, rather than a final product unto themselves.
Okay, because I just want to make sure the record's straight that there are some end products in here that are to be sold directly to consumers. I just want to make sure the record's clear on that.
Okay.
It's not just wholesale in-house use stuff.
Okay.
Yes, and if I confused that, we could break it up further.
No, I'm fine. I just wanted to make sure the record was good.
Okay.
I would appreciate if they broke up a little bit further, just because I'm okay with in-house and wholesale sales, but when it comes to the final product, sometimes I have issues. So if they can broke up a little bit, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? Mr. Schulte, I would like an amendment, and I would like to remove from your list Rico Rossi Langira. I would like to remove from your list, why don't I see it here, T&D Milk. T&D and T&D High Pop. I would like to remove those three from your list.
Okay.
If there's a second to that amendment.
Second.
Okay. There's been a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Is there any objection to that amendment?
If I understand where we're headed with this, the three we've separated out would be, these are infused products that are more likely intended for retail sale. Or is that?
And I think there are three products that I think from previous discussion, those three products we may want to vote on independently.
Can I make an amendment?
Mr. Miller.
Can we add T&D Berry High Syrup? That is meant as a end product for a customer.
To my tree that I pulled off, so this would be pulled out as well.
Yes, sir.
And that was the Berry High Syrups?
Yeah.
Yes.
T&D Berry High Syrup.
Got it.
All right. Is there any objections to those amendments? Okay, so the amended motion would be then to approve T&D butter, T&D canola oil, T&D coconut oil, T&D grapeseed oil, T&D honey, T&D olive oil, T&D peanut oil, T&D sesame oil, T&D vegetable oil, and T&D walnut oil. So on that amended motion, Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. DeShock.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Not listing the products that were pulled off.
I have another motion.
So, yes, Mr. Schulte, your next motion.
Yeah, so I got these all laid out in front of me now. Okay, so this next category would be finished products that would be for consumer, retail consumption. And so the motion would be to approve T&D salty caramel sauce.
Okay.
T&D lollipops.
Okay.
Blueberry lemon muffins. Yum.
Okay.
The hazelnut spread.
Well, let's hear something. Okay.
Brownie bites.
Trying to find that on my list so that I don't forget. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and let's see, pumpkin muffins.
Okay.
Snickerdoodle bites.
Okay.
And sugar pill.
What was that last one?
Sugar pill.
You watching the show? No, I'm listening.
I realize I accidentally...
Is that T&D sugar?
T&D sugar. I'm sorry, yeah, it doesn't say pill. It says PDF. That's what I get for going too fast.
Okay. And then I see T&D sunflower oil, which wasn't included. Could we include that one in your motion?
Yeah, I just realized that I left that out. That should have been in the second category.
Okay. And then peanut butter cookies would be another one that I didn't hear you mention.
Yes, it would. I don't even see those.
Hayden!
Okay.
Oh, there they are.
I've got everything checked off in one manner or another now.
Hayden!
Okay.
So is there a second to the motion? Whoever's hollering at their child or adult, would you please mute your phone?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
This is why I have guppies.
I know. It's been really good. I mean, I have to applaud everybody that's been on the phone. I think the last meeting and this meeting so far, although this time we seem to have some more. So, all right, so the motion that was seconded is we would approve T&D Blueberry Lemon Muffins, T&D Brownie Bites, T&D Hazelnut Spread, T&D Lollipops. Whoever's talking to their child, could you mute your phone, please? T&D Peanut Butter Cookies, T&D Pumpkin Muffins, T&D Salty Caramel Sauce, T&D Snickernoodle Bites, T&D Sugar, T&D Sunflower Oil. Does everybody understand the motion?
Sounds right.
Okay. Please, the woman who's talking to her child, could you mute your phone, please? We don't need to hear that discussion. Okay. Is there any discussion of this motion? Okay, so a vote on this motion. Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, so that leaves us with, and maybe Mr. Schulte, if you could write these down, and then we'll just take these one at a time.
Okay. I have 4.
Rico Rossi Lingera.
Eat it at the same time. Yeah.
T&D Berry High Syrup.
Good job, bud.
T&D High Pop. T&D Milk. I think those are it. Does that match your 4, Mr. Schulte?
It does, yes.
Okay. So if we could take those up one at a time, please.
Okay, so then I move to approve the Rico Rossi Langria.
Okay, is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Then for the motion to approve Rico Rossi Langera, Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
And I'm a no. So that passes. T&D Berry High Syrup.
Move to approve. T&D Berry High Syrup.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for the Berry High Syrup. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion. On the motion then, Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
Yes.
And I'm a no. Okay, the next one up is T&D High Pop. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, so on the motion to approve T&D High Pop, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
No.
And I'm a no. That motion fails. T&D Milk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Been moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, on the motion to approve TND milk, Mr.
Hey,
Jaime.
Mr. Chairman, my phone was on mute. I was trying to get in there.
Okay, Mr. Jaime,
I just had a question.
Fine, ask away.
Yeah, just, it says it's for in-house and wholesale, so what would the manufacturer use this for? To create what?
Mr. Coleman? Mr. Coleman, did you hear the question?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. I believe that this product is also, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that this product is another ingredient in some of our other approved products. Jesse?
Jesse, Ms. Light, are you on?
So it's with the products that you guys have right now, it is not being used in any of those. It is just one for future recipes that would be used to infuse a finished product.
Okay, Mr. Jaime, does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion on T&D milk? Okay, so on the motion to approve T&D milk, Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. DeShock.
No.
Mr. Miller.
No.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a no. So that motion fails 1-4. Is that all of them on the list according to your records, Mr. Schulte?
I believe so, yeah. I think we covered them all.
Okay. Let me make a note in this month that the votes on these products are in my April notes.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I'm an old time bureaucrat, so I got all these records back forever. But anyway, so that then we would need a motion to approve the motions, the products that were approved separately by motion for 23989, the next degree, with delegation, I think, on some of them.
Do we
have that motion? I think we do need a motion on the products as a total now that we've done, just to cover all our bases to make sure that we don't skip anything.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay. With delegation, because some of those motions had delegations. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte.
Just for clarity, if only for my own sanity and potentially the licensee, according to my list here, we approved each of the products except for the high pop and the milk.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. That's what.
Okay.
So they know where we are in the program?
Yeah, well, hopefully Ms. Craig and whoever listens to the minutes can sort all this out. With that, is there any further discussion? Okay, so on the motion
This is from licensee. I did have a question for the board, and I know you guys already made a decision. I guess my question would be for guidance as to what you guys would like to see to approve the high pop. I understand the milk obviously needs some work, and we're not even using that product at the time being. But the high pop, was it just the fact that it's such a small jar of delicious popcorn that kind of worries the board?
Let's deal with this motion first, and then those of us who voted against the product can let you know. But I will do that. But I want to get the motion out of the way first.
Okay.
Okay. So on the motion, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. To answer your question, Mr. Coleman, in my mind, I think that the packaging and the dosage just lends itself to not very good portion control or dose control for me. I think you should rethink either the packaging or the product itself and how you might look at it differently than a 32-ounce jar of popcorn in which they're only supposed to take 3 kernels out or whatever. But that's just mine. If anybody else who voted no has any other things to mention to Mr. Coleman.
This is Jaime. I'll just say that I'll probably never vote yes for this product, just being the fact that it looks like popcorn. I mean, you can have a bowl of this on the counter, a little kid walk up, eat it, wouldn't have a clue.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so I guess that's the best guidance that we can give you at this point, Mr. Coleman. And I would also just mention, in overall, I think there's a lot of products that we approved. Some of the concentrates for in-house, milk being the one that we didn't, that really when you go through your ingredients list of all the other products, they're not mentioned in there at all. So we approved quite a bit of product that I don't see any other product using that, and all of those were for wholesale. So I think I would just caution you to be extremely careful about labeling and extremely careful about your ingredients list so that the end consumer and any regulators are perfectly clear as to exactly what marijuana product is in there, because you have to have those concentrates tested and you have to be able to talk about that on the labels. So that would just my other caution to you at this point. Are there any other comments before we move on? Okay, we'd like to just back up before we go on to the board considerations. The attorney did check on the driver's license, and I will read you the email she sent to me and to the director. Says the governor's suspension order is not specific. It suspends through June 30, 2020, AS 28-15-101A, quote, to permit the extension of driver's licenses, unquote. And AS 28-15-010A states, A, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, driver's license expires on the licensee's birthday in the 8th year following issuance of the license. A license may be renewed within 1 year of its expiration upon proper application, payment of the required fee, and except when a license is renewed under C of this section, successful completion of a test of the licensee's eyesight. The attorney then states, I read this as permitting the use of a license even if it has expired within 1 year of its expiration date and not just within the COVID emergency. I don't expect this suspension to extend past June 30, 2020. So with that, I would just simply ask if the attorney and the director can get together and see if there's any need to change the advisory that we saw earlier or not. And if there is, then that advisory could get issued. Is there any other comments or questions from the board on what I just read? And I will ask the director to forward that on to the rest of the board as well.
And we can do that, Mr. Chair. I'll talk to the director. We'll look at the advisory again and see if that'll help the licensees.
Yeah, that was the first thing, was what would happen, help the licensees as well as my understanding of how long you can use an expired license, because I know if you're driving, that may not be as clear.
Right.
Okay.
And there were also provisions on out-of-state licenses, but I didn't think they were applicable here, so I left it to this one.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we are now on to board consideration. And we are on Danish Gardens. There's tab 11. And I believe there was a question last meeting about the status of Danish Gardens. And Mr. Klinkart, can you go over what you found as the status of that particular licensee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Director Klinkart. In April, the Marijuana Control Board requested to have enforcement and AMCO staff confirm the status of the license and operations of licensee Danish Gardens LLC, located in Anchorage, Alaska. They had failed to appear at the January 2020 meeting and had several NOVs as well as unpaid taxes with the Department of Revenue with the state of Alaska. We looked into it, and long and short of it is that they had closed, and the Department of Revenue is currently beginning the administrative procedures to attempt to recover unpaid taxes owed to the state by Danish Gardens. Over.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members?
I have one question.
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, do these guys still have a retail license that's active? Because I thought they had both a retail and a cultivation in the same building.
Mr. Klinkart.
Yeah, I had asked, and I don't know if I asked about the retail, but the cultivation, that upon finding this, I know that we set their license to be null. Let me see if I can get a confirmation on the retail as well in just a moment.
Okay, thanks. That was my only question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is Jane.
Ms. Craig? Oh, Jane Sawyer. Ms. Sawyer.
Yes. I can confirm that both the starter cultivation and the retail are expired.
Okay. And so they're both no longer valid licenses?
Correct.
Okay. That answer your question, Mr. Schulte?
It does, yeah. I was just wondering if that one was going to be coming up for renewal, but I guess not. So, all right, thanks for that.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime.
Mr. Jaime.
A quick question. So since their license is expired, are we no longer going to see any references to Danish Gardens in our meetings?
That would be correct, I hope.
Okay.
Unless it's a new application.
Nope, sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the next item is tab 12, which is Stony Moose and Stony Moose Kitchens. This is an appeal of a determination of transfer of controlling interest application needed. This is for license 10873 and license 16991. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is referencing E&M Holdings LLC, and that looking at this, it's a two-page here, unless you wish me to read the whole thing, but basically the background is that we had received an email from Mr. Mark Woodward asking about the process of filing an ownership change. We explained the steps to him. He was going to get it turned in. Then in April, he was, regarding upcoming move overseas, he was going to ask to be removed from the license and wanted to remove his name from the license. The change described at the time involved Mr. Woodward. He was at 40%. He asked for suggestions on how to proceed so that he could make the change. We responded and told him that that it would be a controlling interest, which required board approval at the time. And so he emailed saying then in April that he didn't hear anything about emergency meeting. He wanted to discuss it with the board about being able to allow him to make that transfer and to get him removed from the license, and that the board had to approve it. So we're basically asking you to require renewal applications reflect the current ownership, including Mr. Woodward, requiring controlling interest of all licensees being held. And what was the other thing? And what I would really like the board to do, if they haven't already, to please read Mr. Woodward's email stating his side of it, so that you can feel like you've got his side of the story.
And Mr. Chair, this is Joan Wilson. Oh,
Ms. Wilson.
I just wonder if anyone's heard from Mr. Reimer, who is the individual who's supposed to get the controlling interest.
Nobody, not I as a board member, I have not heard. Mr. Woodward, are you online?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, and who is the other person that the attorney just mentioned? Mr. Reinhardt?
Eric Reamer. Eric Reamer. He's the other owner, and actually he's gooey duck diving as we speak, so he's unable to talk to us. But if you guys need him to, he could call in, and this is an absolute approval. As the email says, I just would like the director to be able to approve the transfer, because my situation is I can't wait to August, and that would be the next board meeting. And so all I'm asking is that if the director can approve the transfer instead of the board, just in this special circumstance.
Okay, are there any questions from board members of either the director, the attorney, or Mr. Woodward?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
So I guess I'll start with Mr. Woodward. I did read your emails, and I think I understand the situation. Is there any? What I don't understand is why the necessary paperwork couldn't have just been signed, notarized, and submitted prior to today's meeting. Am I missing something there?
No, we didn't have when I was. Sorry,
Mr. Woodward.
Yes, when we were talking about this with licensing, we didn't think we were going to get all the necessary paperwork in time, and so they suggested this as an alternative to just ask you guys if I could do this. And like I said, if we have to wait till August, I guess that's what it is, and I could do that, but it might be difficult for me to respond to the board at that time because I could be gone from the country. There's a window of time, and I don't really know when it's going to be because of the restrictions of travel right now to the location. And so that's why I just asked if we could do it this way, but still have the director review the entire transfer to see if there's any problems. And that's really all I'm asking is director to be approval just on this case.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schulte?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just one quick follow-up. So I guess, has the paperwork been submitted? I guess no, I'm still understanding why the process hasn't been initiated.
Because it was an unknown at the time. It wasn't a clear thing, and then all of a sudden I got approval that this move was going to happen, and it was past the due date, or it was within a day or two or something like that. And so I talked to licensing, and then they suggested, you're not going to get that done. You need to, or you're not going to get it in time for the meeting deadline to make the meeting, and so they suggested this route instead. That is a possibility for me to consider. So,
all right, I think you answered my question. Then it was the timing for the deadline for this meeting. Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Yes.
Okay, and I didn't recognize the other voice. Was that Mr. Clickhart?
That was Mr. Jaime.
That was Mr. Schulte.
Oh, Mr. Jaime.
Okay. Oh, very
Mr. Chair, to the director, are there any NOVs or tax liability issues with Stony Moose?
None that I'm aware of, but thank you. That's a good question. No, none that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just say I don't see an issue with delegating this to the director.
Is there any legal issue with delegating this with a formal motion to the director, Ms. Wilson?
It is a permissible delegation, Mr. Chair. The only odd issue here is that you don't have an application that you're actually working on. But I think that's more of a technical file than a substantive one.
Okay.
Meaning if you approve the director having the authority, I think you're fine.
Okay. Is there any board action?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Schulte.
So I would move to approve the transfer of ownership with delegation to the director, and the delegation to include verification that all all the interested parties are accounted for and have approved, to the best of our knowledge, the transfer.
That would include any required background checks, any of that kind of thing, or at least initiated.
Yeah, well, because it looks
what were we just talking about? I'm sorry.
It looks like there's currently 8 shareholders, and it's going to the transfer will result.
Oh wait, the protest.
Mr. Schulte, there's somebody having a conversation on this line. Would you please mute your phone?
There was one argument I saw break out because the guy brought a.
Whoever's talking about a breakout, please mute your phone. You're interrupting the meeting. Okay.
Yeah, so just reading the director's narrative, it looks like there's the 2 main shareholders, Eric and Mark, and then 6 others who share the remaining 20% ownership. And I would just like the delegation to verify that all 7 of the remaining shareholders are, there's documented evidence that they are all in agreement to this transfer.
Okay. And that they will bring back all of that paperwork and a temporary approval to our August meeting?
That sounds good.
Okay. And I think I did hear a second to that motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
This is Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller.
Seeing how I'm totally confused now, I thought they were also asking that he not be included on the renewal. Did I misread that?
I believe that's the case, even without the transfer, but that wasn't part of the motion. So I guess the question I would ask of Ms. Craig, when is the renewal application due to AMCO?
She's on mute, but I believe it's June 30th.
I believe, give me just 1 second, please.
Mr. Chairman, while she's looking at... It would be July 1st,
I'm sorry.
July 1st. Okay? So if the director approved this prior to July 1st, then the application for renewal could reflect the new ownership. Mr. Miller, I interrupted you.
I was going to amend the motion that as long as the transfer is received prior to the renewal application being submitted, that it be delegated that way.
Okay. Is there any objection to that amendment to the motion?
No, because I realized that my motion didn't fully address staff's recommendation, so I think that's a totally appropriate change.
Okay. Any other comments on the amendment? And I will assume the amendment is passed. And so if I can, I won't get this correct, but Ms. Craig can, but the motion is that we would approve the transfer with delegation, the delegation being verification that all of the required paperwork was in order and received, and that if this was done and the transfer was approved, would be done before, if then the renewal could be submitted with the new owners. Is that roughly correct?
That's my understanding. Does that work for the director? Does that meet his?
Yeah, that's what I've written down. So between Carrie and I think we've got it.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, if I may just add then for Mr. Woodward's benefit, he's got barely 20 days, including weekends, to get all this paperwork finalized. So he's kind of under the gun.
Yes,
this is Mr. Woodward to the chair. Everything, we have the paperwork ready to go. We were just waiting for you guys to say okay, and it'll be submitted tomorrow morning. As long as Eric makes it back from diving, yes.
Yes. Okay. So then on the motion, Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Mr. DeShock,
Yes.
Mr. Jaime,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so Mr. Woodward, thank you, and wish you luck on your new employment.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
As long as you aren't headed
it'll,
to Kwajalein or something, we're okay. Huh?
no, we're good. We're good. And thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Miller, for adding that addendum there. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay, so we are now on to tab 13, Denali Grass Company. And this was under 3AC 306-845A, appeal of failed to complete determination of the application. So I guess Director Klinkhart.
Yeah, this was, we had sent an incomplete transfer notice to the licensee back in January. We received, then from January to April, received partial corrections and a request for an extension to the 90-day deadline due to difficulties in obtaining amendments to the sublease and a master lease issue. So there was some leasing issues trying to get it. AMCO sent a second incomplete transfer application via email and denied the request for an extension, but would reconsider closer to the 90-day deadline. And I believe I want to add that in this case, yeah, there had been the licensee had indicated that they had, due to COVID and their work situation, they were trying but unable to get everything in. So by April, late April, we received partial corrections. We reconsidered the request, which was denied. The leases still weren't completely in hand. We sent a notice that we still hadn't, it was failed to complete. By a couple days later, we got some more partial corrections to the sublease. Next day, we still needed to, we let them know that we needed to have the sublease amendments. So it was kind of one of those where we got some of the paper, but not all of it. They were trying to get it to us. They just could not get it to us. Finally, in the end of April, we received a copy of the master lease. And the problem was that it was beyond the 90-day deadline. Basically, there was, I hope that the licensee is on the phone to be able to give their side of it, because I think this was one that that needed to at least be brought forth in front of the board for, the devil's always in the details. So, are they here now?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nolan or Ms. Welchine, or either one of you or both of you on the phone?
Yes, we're both on the phone. Sue's on the phone, and I'm on the phone as well.
Okay. Any comments briefly before we start this board discussion?
Sure, briefly. So,
go ahead.
I thought that was for me. I'm sorry.
I was confused myself.
Oh, Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I will hold my question/comment.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
Ms.
great.
Welchine.
Thank you. Thank you. So through the chair, Sue Nolan's part of what's called the Alaska DMAT team. So it's a federal deployed, it stands for Federal Disaster Medical Assistance Team. And so the federal deployment of this team came around in the beginning of March. And so what this team is 1,600 specialized people that are across the United States that assist with emergencies. So, when 9/11 happened, Sue was one of the first responders because she's a registered nurse and she's trained for first responders in these emergency situations. So between March and April, she had so many different team calls, conference calls. She was providing logistical support for other teams deployed in more impacted areas that were COVID impacted. So, staff is right. She didn't get everything together in time, but she couldn't do that because she was just working on all of these other things per her federal deployment. And then in addition to that, she couldn't get this lease from the lawyers that were in the East Coast. They just weren't pulling it together in time to meet this deadline. She did end up submitting it a few days after the failed to complete notice, but it's really just, a few days after. So what we're really requesting, she's submitted everything, it's a complete application, is we're just requesting that she not have to pay another $1,000 fee. Because, really, she was doing her duty to her country, and she was you know, providing this really important, critical logistical support for her team, which again is 1,600 people across the United States. And it's out of her control that the, you know, lawyers on the East Coast that were more impacted there than here, really just couldn't get their staff to get the paperwork together for her leasing. And so she's just a few days late, and so we're really just hoping that we can just not have to pay the $1,000 fee, because she already paid it once. She's resubmitted the whole application, and she's just hoping, and I think staff, you know, just felt like they didn't have the authority to make that waiver. And so that authority rests with the board, and so that's our request, is to waive the additional $1,000 fee so she doesn't have to repay for the transfer.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr.
This is Jaime. Just a quick question for Ms. Wiltsine. When were you retained?
I've been retained, but she didn't have me do this transfer, and Sue, you can answer that, because she was trying to save money.
Ms. Nowlin?
Yes, that is correct. I've always done my own transfers, and I probably shouldn't be doing them. And the other thing I'd like to do is, the disaster medical team got put on alert January 14th. And we were the Alaska team was one of the first to get deployed down to San Diego, which a lot of people didn't know about the time for the COVID, that we supported a cruise ship coming in. So the last 4 months have just been very, well, my priorities have been other places. It's to the team. So, yeah, was I delinquent? Yep. Did I hire somebody to do my paperwork? Yep, but I didn't.
Mr. Jaime, does that answer your question?
It does. I'd just like to say, you know, that we have deadlines for a reason. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, just a question, maybe for the director, maybe for Ms. Wilson. Do we, from a statutory perspective, do we have the leeway to waive the fee in this case?
This is Joan Wilson speaking. They're not, in my book, they're not asking for a waiver fee. They're asking for a late acceptance of this application in order to avoid having to submit another application.
Oh, okay.
So that's my reading of it. Is that what you're asking, Ms. Wellstein?
Yes, yes.
So I do think you have that jurisdiction, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I want to make sure I understand this, that basically the current licensee is Sue Noland, and this is being transferred to Noma Gold LLC, which is 100% owned by Susan Noland. So basically, it's paperwork to transfer ownership from you personally to a corporation that you're 100% owner of. Is that my understanding of what this is?
That is correct.
Yes.
So this involves no other person besides yourself?
That is correct.
It involves no other person. Sue initiated this license and accidentally initiated it where she was owned it personally and not owning it.
I'm just saying, but in terms of ownership, this is the only person involved is the person who's currently there and will be there no matter what this action portends.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So is there
Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime. I'd just like to say thank you for, this is Jaime. I'd just like to say thank you for that clarification. That does make a big difference. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any board action, any motion?
I would move to accept this application, even though it is a little late, with delegation if any is required.
Okay. Ms. Wilson, what does that do? Does that bring it then back before us at the August meeting, once staff has reviewed this?
Is there anything to delegate? That's what I'm trying to, I needed an answer.
I mean, he basically said it was a motion to accept the application.
Yeah. Oh, to accept the application and not to approve it. Yes,
that was
would have
the motion.
to come back. Yeah.
Back in August.
If you're ready to approve it, if there's enough, I don't know if the director or his team have done work to determine that the application meets all other standards or requirements.
This
Mr. Who?
This is Susan Nolan.
Yes, Susan.
I did receive an email from the marijuana licensing board that they had received everything except for the $1,000 application fee, and then my background check and fingerprints had expired. So I sent my background check in yesterday, and my fingerprint appointment was this morning, and so I just need to make an appointment to drop them off to the staff at the office. So my understanding is everything is in line except for the $1,000 fee that they're requiring.
And through the chair, that just raised a question. Yeah, hasn't she already paid the fee once? That's my question.
Exactly. Yes,
Right.
Ms. Jones, Ms. Wilson, she has already paid the fee once, and also the staff has already reviewed this, and she's already responded to incomplete letters and gotten all those corrections done. Also, she filed an MJ17B, so none of the operating plan or the diagram is changing.
I don't know if Ms. Craig has anything.
Thank you to the chair. I believe that staff will need to pull everything together, and they're just probably going to do a quick review of it and make sure it is all there, and then they will officially deem it complete. And at that point, they would have to send it out to other state agencies like local governments, if applicable. And then it should be coming back around at the August meeting for your approval. Thank you.
Okay.
This is again. I do have an email that it says it's been deemed complete, but that's fine. I mean, it can roll out to August.
Yeah,
Through the chair, can we just make an amendment to the original motion to approve with delegation with the extension?
Thank you. That's good.
You can make that amendment, and we'll see where it goes. So what would be your amendment?
To approve the application for transfer with delegation, and to extend the time frame that she was allotted, so that she does not have to pay another $1,000.
Okay. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Scholey. Any further discussion? Okay, then the now amended motion is that the board motions to approve the transfer with delegation, and that delegation would be that all of the paperwork is done, and she will not have to pay the additional $1,000 fee.
Yay!
Is there any discussion?
This is Jaime again. I just want, not really discussion, I'd just like to say thank you for participating in the COVID response down in San Diego. And this is during the pandemic, so things are just off all over the place. So, you know, I think this extension is worthy of an extension of this. So thank you.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay, so on the motion, Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShock.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. With that, then we have one new standard cultivation I'd like to do before we take the break. So that would be tab 14, Houston Refinery. Mr. Klinkhart.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do believe this is the Houston Refinery 22396. It's an application for a standard marijuana cultivation facility. in the city of Houston, and looking at the memo and the dates, looks like we're still pending a fire marshal response, if they haven't already gotten that. Background is complete, and no objections, and no other public comments received. Over.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online from Houston Refinery?
Yes, sir.
good
Attorney
afternoon.
Dana. There you go, Tony. Tony Cruz is on the line, and Dana Webstein, attorney for Houston Refinery.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions from the board on this application? Okay.
I have a I'm sorry. I'm online and have a question.
And who is this?
My name's Sam Hansen.
Ms. Hanson, yes.
If I'm correct, this is tab 15. In Section 7, Health and Safety Standards, it specifies that asks for a convenient hand washing facility with running water. This license indicated that licensees, managers, and employees also use the restroom and hand washing facilities at the resident's nearby facility. This license has a lease agreement with the landlord, and there's nothing in the lease agreement that states they have access to the resident for restrooms or hand washing facilities. The lease agreement for the building only. If you approve changes over time and ownerships at every meeting, and it can happen tomorrow with this facility. Without it clearly stated in the lease agreement, there's no guarantee that this license can use the house at any time. So either they need to add a bathroom, or they need to add in their lease agreement that they will always be able to access the house on the lot during the time of this lease. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll
get the setup in there.
Ms. Welsing.
So Deborah and Tony, this is their personal residence that they live at. And they've lived there for many years.
Whoa.
And
I don't know who just hollered whoa, but would they please mute their phone? Ms. Welsing,
so I don't
continue.
Yeah, so I don't really see any issue with having any access to the hand washing. They don't intend to sell this business, and if they did, then you would get a transfer license application, which would include a lease, and we can consider those things when at that time they would be relevant, but right now they're not relevant.
Okay, is there any comments?
Comment here from Tony Hughes. Tony
Yes,
Hughes,
Tony.
Houston Refinery. We're talking about tab 14. I believe the lady who spoke was talking about tab 15.
Thank you. I was
tab 15.
Yeah. We are on tab 14, Houston Refinery Standard Cultivation.
And I'm apologizing, I'm in my car listening in, and I did not hear whether it was 14 or 15. So I'll reserve my comment for tab 15. I do apologize.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the diagram. There is a hand sink and a mop sink in this facility. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at the plans. I'm like, wait a second, that makes no sense. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, a lot of people talking over. It's hard to control the conversation and figure out who's talking. Is there any questions from the board of this applicant? Okay, my question is this facility built already?
We're in process of breaking ground. We have not broke ground yet. We're going to be doing this probably as soon as we get the fire marshal approval in the next week or two.
Okay. I assume the fire marshal then would have to approve once your building's actually built as well?
Yes, so the fire marshal will give us a certificate, then they'll be able to build, and if the fire marshal deems it appropriate, they'll come out and check out the building.
Okay. So how long is it going to take you to build the building?
Hopefully have it done by the middle of July, 1st of August.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions from the board, or is there a motion?
Move to approve the delegation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and approved, or moved and seconded for approval of license 22396 Houston Refinery for a new standard cultivation facility. Is there any further board discussion? Okay, then on the motion, Mr. DeShuck.
Yep.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Have to keep remembering who I called on, who I didn't, and I'm a yes. So that is passed and approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz, Ms. Wellseen. It is now 2:37, and I would move or just recess for, let's recess to 10 minutes till. I know that's a little longer break, but then we can go for the next hour and a half and get finished up around 4:30. So come back at 2:50. Thank you. Okay, so this is Chairman Jones. I show it's 2:50. Mr. Miller, are you online?
I am.
Mr. Jaime, are you online? Mr. Schulte, are you online?
This is Jaime. I'm online. I couldn't unmute my phone.
Okay. Mr. Schulte, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online? Mr. Schulte or Mr. DeShock, are you online?
Schulte's back.
Ms. Schulte, Mr. DeShock, are you online? Mr. DeShock, are you online? Okay, we will assume that he'll announce himself. We established a quorum. There's at least 4 of us here. We are now on to limited cultivation facilities. And we are on tab 15, license number 24667. And I will never pronounce it, so I'm going to say chronic until I've been corrected. Is there anybody online from Colander Enterprises LLC doing business as Chronic?
Yeah, me and my you're both on. Dana Weltzine and the 2 licensees, Sarah and Brandon, are on the phone.
Who else is on the phone? They were both talking over each other.
Yeah, Dana Weltzine, attorney, and Sarah and Brandon. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, I just was introducing myself. I'm Sarah Callender.
Okay. And Brandon?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Director Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for a limited marijuana cultivation facility in the Mat-Su Borough by Colander Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Chronic. The application has been reviewed, deemed complete, except for we're pending local government response, fire marshal response, background check. And as of May 28th, there were no objections received. However, given prior comments, I believe there may be some.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime. Before we even make a motion, shouldn't we wait to ensure that the local government does respond in the fire marshal or in the background checks? I mean, I prefer not to move forward even with delegation until we have those responses.
Mr. Jaime, our process has been to, and we haven't done it all today, it's usually to make a motion, and then we can either table the motion if we wanted to. All of our motions are with delegation. That delegation would be waiting for the fire marshal. And so rather than they'd have to come back to the board once we got the fire marshal by delegation, it allows the director to clear the delegation, which would be the fire marshal, the local government protest. If the local government does protest, then it would be brought back to the board in August. So we wouldn't hold up the application waiting on those, except for through the delegation process.
Is there anything going on this that actually has to do with the farm?
Sounds good, sir. Thank you.
So you're just
You bet. I don't know who's talking on the telephone, but could you mute your phone, please?
Are they getting paid? Are you getting paid to listen? Yeah.
I don't know who's talking about getting paid to listen, but I'm not. So
I was just going to say, I'm not getting paid.
Is that an option?
Is there a motion?
Move to approve with delegation license number. See, is that right? I'm look at the license on the drawing. Hang on.
It's 24667.
That is correct. Yeah, 24667 Chronic.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Not at this time, I don't believe.
Okay.
Well,
I was asking if the board had any questions of you all.
I have one.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Schulte. Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, and I apologize, Calendar, I didn't get your first name, but, so I see the site plan here, so it looks like you're just gonna have sort of a small, utility building, which is just the cutest little grow, I'll just have to say. It sounded like there was some concern about, sanitation. I see there is no washing facilities inside here, but, that there's another building on the property, presumably you have access to, be able to wash out there?
Well, I think,
Ms. Calendar.
yeah, so it's on our primary residence where we live full-time, and it is such a small facility that it will only be me that has been using it, so that is why we do not have any kind of washing facilities in it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But they're in our home.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It's a really straightforward plan.
Any other questions from the board of the applicants? Okay, Ms. Hanson, if you're still online, we have your recorded comments previously regarding the sanitation, so I won't ask you for any more comments, but we do have yours on the record, and they have been noted.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has any comment on Chronic? And did I pronounce that right? Is there another way to pronounce the name of your business?
No, that's perfect.
Oh, okay. I actually did something right for the first time today. Any other questions from the board? Okay, so on the motion to approve license 24667 Chronic, a limited marijuana cultivation facility with delegation, Mr. Hyman.
No.
Mr. Kashuk.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-1. Okay, so we are then on to license number 25145, Alaska Botanical Farms, which is tab 16. Again, this is out in Wasilla. Is there anybody from Alaska Botanical Gardens on the line?
Jana Wilson, attorney for, there you go, Andrew. Attorney for Andrew Campbell.
And Jana. Thank you, yes.
And Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, is there a, Mr. Klinkart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for a limited marijuana cultivation facility in the Matsu Borough. Alaska Botanical Farms, Inc., doing business with Alaska Botanical Farms. I would note that there's still a little time on the objection period, which ends on the 21st of June. They did indicate that they are not going to be using any pesticides, so there wasn't a DEC response date. We're still pending fire marshal and background check, and done at that point.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve with delegation license number 25145, Alaska Botanical Farms.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions from board members?
This is Jaime, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jaime.
Not really a question, but a comment. Delegation is a great tool that we use, and it accomplishes a lot, and it makes our process a little more streamlined. But I feel, once again, that this license shouldn't be brought before us until at least the objection period ends. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, I have a couple, and it does with the premises diagram, and maybe Andrew or Ms. Welcine can explain. It appears to me that this is a single building that has a couple of different entrances, at least 4 or 3 that I can see, maybe 4, and that an employee entrance on the bottom of the figure into an unlicensed private area, into a hallway, and then you can go into Unit A1. I assume that that is where an employee would go. I don't know where they would go off to the right that's still in the green. And then there's also another unlicensed area, private, that can be accessed from inside Unit A1. And could you explain the actual flow? It seems like this has some restricted access areas that are surrounded by unlicensed private areas. Could you explain those private areas to me, please?
Sure. The private areas are leased by by another company, and those doors would not be available to be opened by anyone other than the landlord, or I guess in this particular case that would probably be about it. Now, as far as the entrance, at the bottom of the diagram where it says employee entrance exit, that's actually the front of the building. The rest of the building is surrounded by a fence in the back. And so the employee entrance exit area is a common area that people would enter. Anyone that would be entering the licensed premises would go through this entrance and then into the licensed premises. Did I answer your questions?
Yes.
Okay.
It's concerning, but I just am concerned about the door between Unit A1 and the unlicensed area. If the landlord has access one way, I assume, so I'm concerned about that. And then I don't see any entrance into the restroom, unless I guess the employee would have to come out of Unit A1 into the common area, but then I don't see a door to the restroom. I assume you have access to that restroom, even though that is not part of your leased facility?
Absolutely. It's a common area, and there is a doorway. It just didn't happen to be on the diagram. And as far as the unlicensed private area, that's actually leased by a company that is owned by a family member. So hopefully that clarifies anything.
A family member that is not part of the license and is an employee, doesn't matter. It's the same as anybody else. I just have some concern about the security. So I would have that as part of the delegation that upon inspection that needs to be reviewed to make sure that our investigation staff think that that has some proper security and is properly camered. Okay.
Absolutely. If I could just clarify one last thing. No one from the unlicensed private area that's leased by the other company would have access into the licensed area. Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, that'll be verified upon the dry inspection.
Absolutely.
Is there any other questions of the board on this particular licensee? Okay, so hearing none, on the motion to approve this license 25145 Alaska Botanical Farms, a limited cultivation facility with delegation. Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
No.
Mr. DeShuck?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that approved 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now on to new retail, and tab 17. So this is Alaska Grown Cannabis, license number 22294, located in the Milchik within the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Is there anybody online from Alaska Grown Cannabis?
Janet Weltbean, attorney for Alaska Grown Cannabis, and Kala Peacock, the licensee, is on the phone.
Yes, Kala Peacock, I'm here on the line.
Okay. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for, as you said, a retail marijuana store on the Kenai Peninsula Borough, in the Kenai Peninsula Borough by Alaskan Grown Products, LLC, doing business as Alaskan Grown Cannabis. Looks like the only things of note are that we're still pending the local government response, DEC response, fire marshal. Background check is complete, and there have been no objections received as of May 28th, 2020. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve with delegation license number 22294, Alaska Grown Cannabis.
And that delegation includes the Kenai Peninsula Borough conditions.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions of the applicants?
Through the chair, could I make a comment?
And who's this, Jana?
Oh, Jana, yes.
Yes, please.
I just want to, clarify on some of Mr. Jaime's concerns about waiting for these, other things to come back. This is the process in alcohol, and it's also been a process for marijuana where we've always, had to wait for these things. That's why it's approval with delegation. And so it's been the process. It's the process in alcohol, and so I hope everybody's comfortable with it. But I hate to keep getting no votes because of it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So hopefully, maybe somebody, maybe staff can help also illuminate on that, so Mr. Jaime isn't so uncomfortable with these pending matters.
No, Jana, this is Jaime. I do appreciate your comments. I guess I weigh all applications, individually. Like this one, I really don't see too many issues with. Certain ones where the objection periods, hasn't ended yet. I understand delegation. Like I said, it's a great tool, but, I think we should use it, appropriately in my perspective. I mean, that's my perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Wilson?
this is Jane.
Oh, Jane. Thank you.
So I just wanted to add a little bit to Jana's comment to sort of clear things for Mr. Jaime. The reason why we deal with delegations is for local government and for objection periods is because once the application is deemed complete, the board only has 90 days to act on that application. And if we wait the 60 days or the 30 days for the local government and the objection period respectively, then you would go over that deadline. And so if we find problems through the delegation, such as the local government protesting or objections, then we'll bring it back to you. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Jane. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Any other questions on this specific application? Okay, my only question, and this is not necessarily of this particular application, but maybe for the applicant or the attorney, and maybe a caution to the director and his staff. This particular person has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 other licenses that they list on the MJ00 form. And I looked at 4 of them. One is in Anchorage, one is in Nome, 2 are in Bethel, which are also under delegation status. They are not open. And since most of these appear to be solely owned by the applicant, I'm curious if they can talk to me about sort of your span of control, having facilities in Bethel, Nome, Anchorage, down in Nilchik, maybe other places. I didn't check all of them. In terms of understanding what goes on in the business with whoever you're hiring as managers, the independence of those managers versus our definition of sort of financial control and making decisions, how you supervise along according to your procedures on staff training. Could you just sort of assure me that somebody with 13 or 14 licenses, that's a single person in multiple communities in rural and urban Alaska, can maintain the kind of control over the quality and license or staff actually complying with all the rules and regulations? If you could just help me be assured that our investigators won't be spending a lot of time worrying about the fact that you're in Anchorage and the Nilchik's having problems, or you're in Bethel and Nome's having problems. So can you just sort of help me with that, please?
Yeah, through the chair, that's a great question, and I'm going to pass it to Carla, but before I do, I just wanted to point out, you know, Nome is actually owned as a partnership with a local resident there. So Carla actually is only 50% of Nome, and Robin is the other 50%, and so he lives there and he operates the Nome facility, Robin does. Kotzebue, which is where Carla was born and raised, he owns that one by himself, and so he's got, you know, good staff there because, you know, obviously he's from there. The 3 Anchorage licenses, he has 2 other partners in that, so the 2 other partners are actually on site and working those facilities, and Carla, you know, doesn't really spend too much time at those Anchorage facilities because the 2 other owners are in Anchorage working those 3 facilities in Anchorage. Bethel's been, we've had a heck of a time just getting it off the ground, and so I can let Carla talk more about that. But those are the only licenses that are active and operating. So really the only one that is going right now that is solely owned by Carla is Kotzebue in his hometown. Carla, do you have anything to add? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, no, you kind of nailed it there, Jana. My Barrow location that is actually delegated also is co-owned. So I have a local partner that is from Barrow. And yeah, I mean, realistically, I have a great team underneath of me. I'm actually heading to Kotzebue tomorrow. I pretty much am out of my backpack at this point, traveling all over the place. And yeah, I have a great management team in Kotzebue. Like Jana said, it's my only sole ownership location as of now. And yeah, Jana, I think, hit the rest of those points pretty clearly.
Okay. That's helpful, but it is of a concern, and I didn't go through every license to see which were owned and not owned. And with you traveling around, knowing that the rest of us are still hunkered down, I hope you're taking all the health precautions of sanitation, mask, and washing your hands, because that's not something we want to. People traveling around.
He's got an approved COVID plan through the state. We had to submit a COVID travel plan, so there's precautions in there that he's got to follow, and so we've been making sure those are being adhered to.
And just to add one more extra point there, yeah, on top of all the precautions that we take, Kotzebue, Nome, every location that we go to has their own policies in place. So every time I land in Kotzebue, I get a COVID test right when I land. I'm spending minimal time there, no contact with anybody other than my manager, deliver the products, and get back on the same airplane on the same flight out to help with those, those issues of COVID-19.
Okay.
And just one other point to add, in the state of Alaska under Green Bits, the point-of-sale system, I have currently the highest compliance rating. What I was told by Green Bits, and so I pride myself on that, and I pride myself on being from Kotzebue and bringing a product to the citizens there that they can enjoy.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate all of those comments. and questions, but I do know that Nome just had a new case today or yesterday, so the Kotzebue. So anyway, that's my questions. Any other questions from board members? Okay, so on the motion to approve with delegation and the Kenai Peninsula Borough delegation are conditions for license 22294 Alaska grown cannabis. Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. So why do I, okay, so we are on tab 18, new retail store, license number 22297, Foxy Enterprises. Is there anybody online from Foxy Enterprises?
Jana Lupstein, attorney for Foxy Enterprises, and Glenn Crocius should be on the phone. Glenn?
Actually, Glenda's on the phone. Glenn's sitting next to me. He's so hard of hearing.
I know he is. Thank you, Glenda.
So he's here right next to me.
All right, thank you. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is indeed an application for a retail marijuana store in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Barbara Crocius and Glenn Crocius doing business as Foxy Enterprises. The only things to note, I believe, would be the local government response is still pending, as is DEC and the fire marshal. Background check is complete. There have been no objections as of today. Over.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve with delegation, license number 22297, Foxy Enterprises.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from board members of the applicant? Okay, hearing none. My question is this facility built?
Yes.
Okay. Is it like a container? It looks long and narrow.
Correct. It's a Connex, an ATCO unit. Sorry, not a Connex. It's an ATCO unit that we've refurbished.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion from the board? Okay, so then on the motion to approve with delegation, license 22297, Foxy Enterprises for a new retail marijuana store. Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
One of these days I'm going to pronounce your name the same way the second time or third time or whatever. Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much. Good application, I guess.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
I don't know if the board is aware of this, but Mr. Crocius basically broke ground with the Division of Agriculture, Board of Agriculture and Conservation a couple years ago, and he is currently the only marijuana cultivator to have a loan from the Agriculture Revolving Loan Fund. There's $12 million left to loan. I would like to remind people, now that I have this occasion, that is an opportunity for cultivators in Alaska.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, can you repeat
Mr.
that?
Schulte?
I am fascinated. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, through the chair, this was an issue of first impression for the Board of Agriculture and Conservation, whether they could give a loan to a marijuana cultivator. After a lot of consultation, including with the Department of Justice, including with the Department of Revenue and the attorney who represents banking and securities, we determined that fund is not subject to any federal banking restrictions. We had to address what to deal with the receipt of money, but we were able to meet the satisfaction of both DNR and Department of Revenue. and Mr. Crocius can probably comment about how his loan payments are being received. But now what's very important with the Agricultural Revolving Loan Fund is that you be well collateralized. You know, our first avenue is land and farm equipment, and it's almost, I think it's a 75% value ratio, but the rate of loan is anywhere from 3 to 4%. It includes land, it includes equipment, it includes farming supplies. Hemp growers also have this opportunity as well. I don't know if you have any more questions, Mr. Schulte. It took about, I'm guessing, close to 2 years, Mr. Crocius, to get that loan approved. It was a lot of work on the Department of Law to make sure the agency could provide that loan to this grower.
No other questions. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Okay. So that's been approved then, and so we are on to tab 19, which is license 23934, Midnight Sun Distributors. This is in the Matsu. There is a local government conditional protest pending the issuance of a conditional use permit. Is there anybody online for Midnight Sun Distributors?
Jana Wilson, attorney for Midnight Sun Distributors, and Phil Schneider should be on the phone.
I am.
Is Phil Schneider?
Yes.
Okay. Is there Mr. Klinkhart then?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is indeed an application for a retail marijuana store in the Matsu Borough by Midnight Sun Distributors, LLC, doing business as Midnight Sun Distributors. Looks like the things of note is that there is a local government response from May 26th, a protest pending issuance of a conditional use permit, and a DEC response issue. There's a pending fire marshal, and their background check, however, has been complete. No other public comments. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Sorry, I'm behind the power curve here. Okay, move to approve a delegation license number 23934, Midnight Sun Distributors.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from the board of the applicant? Okay, hearing none. I have at least one that may turn into several. When I looked at the premises diagram, it was a little difficult for me it looks like it's, I don't know, I want to say V-shaped building of some sort. There's an awful lot of things about a cultivation, and I know that when there's a license 23933 that I think is in process, since it doesn't show up on the marijuana license database, that I assume will be coming in. So what I would like to do is have the applicant explain to me how is the shape of the building? Are they separated? There's lots of stairs that appear to show either a second story or it's an elevation. It was just really unclear to me how this retail was going to be separate from what looked like maybe potentially a cultivation and maybe even a manufacturing. So if you could sort of better explain to me anyway what this building and how it's configured.
Right. I appreciate the questions. I own the building, and as frustrating as it was for you to figure out, I had to pay a guy to give me that drawing, so I really do apologize.
Okay.
So basically, I can assure you that the retail is contained, and if you look carefully, there are colored lines that dictate the outline of that particular space. I own Midnight Sun Manufacturing, which is in the middle of the building, or the L shape, as you mentioned. The cultivation stuff is potential future cultivation, but my real estate office sits in there, and it's likely not going to play out that way. But Back to my original comment that you got to chuckle about. Really, what if you want me to go back to my architect and clarify anything, I'm happy to. But again, for your concerns, one, I've been operating for a couple of years of manufacturer in the center and the basement of that building, which I think he may have put the wrong license number in that also. But regardless, it is an L-shaped building. There's only dedicated, there's no pass-through from another licensed area into the retail. Just the doors that you see either on the front or the side there. And so, again, if there's any other clarification or if that wasn't clear, I'm all ears.
No, that's fine. I just went back to the MJ00, and I see there is a manufacturing license number that's old, and I did not put that in. So this building would be a building that would be familiar to our investigator staff when they came out to do the review of the retail then.
Yep, and fire and DEC. Yep.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from the board related to license 23934, marijuana retail store for Midnight Sun Distributors? Okay, hearing no other questions, then on the motion to approve license 23934, Midnight Sun Distributors, new retail marijuana store with delegation, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. DeShook.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay,
thank you.
So thank you very much. So we are now on to tab 20, license 23966, the Honey Pot in North Pole. Is there anybody online from the Honey Pot?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Monique Daigle.
And Teresa Lane.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Klinkhart.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is for a retail marijuana store in Fairbanks, North Star Borough by Blue Mountain Green, LLC, doing business as the Honey Pot. Looks like everything has been determined complete. Notices were sent. The only thing we're pending are local government response, fire marshal, and we are still awaiting the background check. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve license number 23966, Honey Pot, with delegation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any questions from the board to the applicants? Okay, then I have one, and again, this is, I don't know whether I'm being too much here, but Ms. Daigle and Ms. Lane, you are co-owners of this application. But I noticed that Ms. Daigle is owner of a standard cultivation facility 13603, and that Ms. Lane is an owner of a standard cultivation license 11424. So, are you two in partnership with each other just on this particular retail store?
That is correct.
I didn't quite understand the relationship. I wanted to make that clear.
Yes, we have two separate cultivation facilities, and we are partners in this retail store only.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. On the motion to approve license 23966, the Honey Pot new retail marijuana store application with delegation, Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. DeShuck.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Passes 4-1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Okay. That moves us to tab 21. This is license number 24097, Alaska Harvest Company, LLC in Soldotna. Is there anybody on the phone from Alaska Harvest Company, LLC?
Yeah, Dean Bush with Alaska Harvest Company.
Could you say your name again, please?
Dean Bush, D-U-S-H.
Okay. Mr. Bush, thank you very much. Mr. Klinkart.
Mr. Chair, today application for a retail marijuana store in the Kenai Peninsula Borough by Alaska Harvest Company, LLC, doing business as Alaska Harvest Company, LLC. Looks like we're only pending their local government response, everything compliant with DEC, compliant with commercial, and their background check is complete. There was one objection received on January 15th, no more as of May 28th, over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the delegation license number 24097, Alaska Harvest Company, LLC.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any questions of the applicants by the board?
This is Jaime through the chair.
Mr. Jaime.
Just looking at the objection, what are the distances? I haven't looked at the property or the diagram yet. So how far are these distances from the Safe Place, the New Hope Counseling Center? Well, I guess those are the two locations.
Mr. Bush.
Yeah, the proximity search done by the borough, I've been working with them since January. They were well within the statutes and the limits. There are
distances?
There's no residential housing, within at least a couple blocks of the building itself anyway.
Mr. Jaime.
No, thank you.
Okay. I sort of Googled it, and I also looked at the application. I couldn't tell either. So I assume that the elementary school and a couple of the others that might be the youth center, all of those are more than 500 feet away, door to door?
Yes, sir, that would be correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And did I hear we're still waiting on, now the Kenai Peninsula Borough generally doesn't protest much as long as we put in the Kenai Peninsula Borough conditions. I would ask this to Mr. Klinkart, has anybody from the borough looked at this? Any comments from the borough about distances?
Yes.
I have no information on that other than that we're still awaiting their response.
Okay.
We could specifically send them something that says, hey, while it's still pending, could you also just check this in mind, as well as be more than happy to have the enforcement guys also do a secondary check if that would be of assistance.
Okay. Mr. Bush, have you talked to the person that submitted the objection?
Yes, they had their, I have not talked to him. No, sir, I haven't. I just saw his objection. I know the planning, we were approved at the planning and zoning meeting, Kenai Peninsula Borough meeting last night, or yesterday, I think that was. They had that, and we were approved there. I have email correspondence with the borough that asking them that do they need to come out and check these businesses, and he said he would be glad to come out, but he did not see anything from his aspect anyway that would warrant that. Everything was well within the distances.
Okay. Well, as part of the delegation, if you could send that email and your approval from the planning and zoning to the office, that would be helpful, I think, for the record.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte.
I think we're on the assembly meeting for the 16th with the borough, so that's next week. But I will see if I can gather up that approval, from the planning and zoning.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I've a question for the gentleman whose business this is. So I'm looking at the site plan. The one I think, well, it's between diagrams 3 and 4. Or I guess it's diagram 3.5. The site plan shows the property boundary and the building. Poppy Lane to the north, California Beach Road to the west, I suppose. Right. What is the building to the southeast? It looks like it's kind of a long rectangular building, possibly even 2 stories with a bunch of cars parked around it. What is that building?
The southeast, that is a auto repair center.
Okay. Okay. And then across the street on the other side of California, what there looks like, is that a gas station?
What?
I'm looking at diagram 4 now. Across the street to the west across from your property.
That is a gas station, Chevron. It is a Chevron gas station across the street. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was just going on Mr. Jaime's question. I'm trying to understand where this other facility would be that's referenced in the objection. I don't even see it on your site plans.
No, it was like, I believe his first name was Byrne. I'm just looking at his email he sent to the state that, and I'm not sure his address, but there are no residential housings within probably 2,000 feet of this.
Well, the protected facilities are not strictly residential. I mean, there's several others, and the type of facility mentioned could potentially. Okay, well, I like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. That's something that the local government is going to look closely at, I'm sure, and the delegation will cover that. So I just want to make sure we're giving due consideration to the objection. Thanks.
Yeah, I fully understood, and we've been working with them, like I said, since January probably, and I think that, I just know to prove that the zoning and planning commission yesterday, actually,
I have no further questions. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so on the motion to approve license 24097, Alaska Harvest Company, LLC, new retail marijuana store, with conditions, including the Kenai Peninsula Borough conditions. On that motion, Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. DeShek.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that is passed. Thank you very much, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. We are now on to tab 22, which is a new marijuana concentrate manufacturing facility application. License 22929, Altered States Extraction, LLC. Is there anybody online from Altered States Extraction, LLC?
Yes, Brandon Ross.
And this is Connor Hicks.
Brandon, your last name?
Ross, R-O-S-S.
Okay, and who else is online?
This is Connor Hicks.
Okay. Mr. Coincart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is indeed an application for a marijuana concentrate manufacturing facility in the Massachusetts Borough by Altered State Extraction, LLC. Note is that the objection period does not end until June 26th, so we still have a number of days for that. Still pending local government, DEC, fire, and background. However, no objections have been received as of May 28th. Oh, I also duly note just for the board, that they have a number of proposed concentrates, approximately 17 of them. Over.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Sorry, I'm already going through the list of products. Move to approve with delegation license number 22929, altered states extractions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there is a second. Are there any questions from the board on the application, not the product? Okay, I had a couple of questions. If I can read my notes. It's been a couple of days since I finished up all of this. My notes say that this looks like a two-story manufacturing business on the side of a building that's going to house a future cultivation. And the first level, all of that is in red, is the manufacturing, and then there's some stairs going up to, looks like lab number 2 packaging area, but the red continues on over to the other stairs, which are basically inside a restricted hallway on the lower level. Could you explain, is the second story of the manufacturing separate enough from the bedroom and the stairs for the future cultivation? Because it looks like the bedroom and the other stairs are part of the restricted access area for the manufacturing. And could you explain that? Is that a correct interpretation, or am I wrong?
Mr. Chair, I think that is incorrect. I have only one set of stairs will be for the manufacturing portion of the business. There is a full wall that separates the lab 2 from the other room with no entrance in between. The other stairs are meant for that room, which will eventually be a bedroom for the cultivation. It has nothing to do with the manufacturing.
Okay. You know, I see a yellow line. I couldn't tell if that was a wall, but you have put all of the restricted area in red, and you included in the red boundaries the bedroom and the other stairs. So I think you will probably want to look at making a correction to that particular part of the diagram so it's more clear. At least for me, I would make that part of the delegation.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other questions from the board on the application outside of the products? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the product list. And it's in a separate folder called marijuana products, and it looks like it is alphabetized. Ma'am, ma'am, this is about the third time we've heard a conversation. Could you mute your phone, please? It's really hard to do our business and listen to you. I believe there is, most of these are concentrates and things that we have approved in other manners, but it's up to the board how they wish to proceed.
Yeah,
I guess I'll go with Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I was going through these as we started. It looks to me like our 17 products, they're all concentrates intended for retail sale, all very similar, if not closely identical to products we've approved before. So I would move to approve the full selection of 17 products. I can name them if you like, or just include them by preference.
I think just saying the whole slate, unless the motion were to fail, is fine.
Okay.
Are there
That
any
is my motion.
questions? Okay, is there a second?
Second, sorry.
Okay, fine. Are there any questions from any board members on any of the products? Okay, I had a question, and it applied to quite a few of the products, so I'll ask it on a general basis. I believe it's the Delta 8 distillate, the distillate, the live sauce, and looks like my paper ran over to the other paper, maybe the live Turks. One of the packaging is basically a vape cartridge, and maybe Mr. Miller or Director Klinkhart can correct me. Generally, when we've seen this type, I'm not sure if we have approved the cartridge separately or whether I'm trying to remember products where we approved where it might be put in a glass jar and or oil that would get put into a cartridge, both packaging in the same product. That was my only question that I had related to that, because they also talked about having some wholesale of that, which may be oil or products that they would be using for other places. Does any other board member have any recollection as to how we handled that before? Okay, hearing none, I guess that wasn't a problem for the rest of you. Mr. Miller.
No, I was just going to say, honestly, I can't recall. That's sad.
I can't either, and I tried to go back to a couple of products and other applications, and I sort of got lost and gave up. Anyway, that was just a question where you take a product and package it in two separate ways. Usually it's either, it's a wholesale, so it goes into something else. Anyway, I will let that go. So are there any specific questions other than mine, haltingly question, about any of the products on this list?
Mr. Chairman, through Schulte?
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, so you got me thinking about this while I was trying to recall past precedent. I do have a question, and I'll phrase this in the context of the Delta 8 distillate, because originally as I looked through these, I thought, well, these are all retail products, but I noticed that in the description for this one, the Delta 8 distillate, it says smokable / wholesale, and then in the picture there's a sort of a large mason jar and then the smaller vape cartridge. So perhaps the folks that are doing this could explain, is this a wholesale product? Is it a retail product? Is it both? And
it would be both. So the mason jars are put on there only for wholesale to other manufacturing companies, product manufacturing companies. The glass jars and cartridges are two other ways that we were planning on packaging the product.
Okay, so you could be producing these cartridges and selling them in bulk to a retail store, or you could just be selling the concentrate to another processor for inclusion in a different product. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure.
Okay, Mr. Klinkhart, do you have any comment on these questions?
No, I just want to make sure that the board, decides if you want to, you need to vote on these individually because of the different types, or can you do them all as is? And are there any concerns with these three different packagings?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime. I thought in the past, did we not separate them between wholesale and retail?
Mr. Jaime, I'm trying to think on the one we did just right after lunch, there were several of those that were both wholesale and a couple of them could also be direct, but we did separate those and approve those. So there were a couple there. Usually on concentrates, you know, they are sold directly to retail for consumer, the shatter, the butter, the diamonds, the sauce, those kinds of things. Generally, a sauce or something else has to be processed some other way in order to make it smokable in a cartridge. That wasn't apparent here, but so I'm trying to think about that myself, and I think for future references, maybe enforcement staff and or licensing staff could maybe review this and comment on that in the August meeting. I don't want to hold this up to see if maybe we have done many things in my 5+ years, and I must say that the weakness of my actions has been consistency in trying to remember what I did a year ago. And try to get a product listing and try to get the staff to show list of what's already been approved so we can correct some of my memory bad. But I think one of my weaknesses has been the consistency of application, and so we may need staff to help us a little bit more. But I don't want to hold up these applications because otherwise I think everything was pretty clear and well labeled and was a good application. But I think the consistency part of at least my actions are the weakest part of my term on the board.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Wilson.
This is Jane, but go ahead,
Jane.
Mr. Schulte.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to make an observation. I occasionally will pop into one of the retail stores just to kind of see what they've got on their shelves and see, you know, how they appear to be doing. And there is such a bewildering array of products out there now. I don't think it's just you. I think trying to keep track of all of these in some cohesive manner is a tall order, even with just a few years behind us. But more to the point, my only concern with this, maybe it's not even a concern, but I'll phrase it as a question to the director, is, you know, if we approve this, I was reading the packaging, and it does describe the range of packaging that could exist for this product. Again, the Delta 8 distillate, and they do describe everything from the small cartridges up to a larger sort of wholesale style container. And my only question is this enough? Like, if we approve this, is this enough of a record so that when enforcement goes into a retail store or this facility and says, hey, let me see your products, let me see your paperwork, are we doing them a disservice by presenting it this way, or is this acceptable for compliance?
Ms. Sawyer.
Thank you. Not understanding very well what your original question was, and just in general, the board has, with all due respect, been consistently inconsistent when it comes to products. And we as the staff have a hard time figuring out what it is that you are looking for, what we should be looking for. When you have approved before concentrates, it depends on how the applicant presents it to us. They sometimes do the packaging in one form, and on the other form they'll do the product, the concentrate, the product itself, and you have approved it both ways.
Okay. I think maybe rather than hammer this out and confuse our applicants with our board discussion, maybe Director Klinkar can add this to a potential work group, maybe of just the board, and maybe some others at a future date to help us be less consistently inconsistent. How's that? And maybe at a time when we can do more face-to-face and staff is more back at work, we can correct this. I don't want to hold up this application. or any of the products, because I think it's a pretty good application. So, is there any other questions of the board related to the motion to approve the full product list as presented in the application? Okay, hearing no comments, on the motion to approve the full list of products from Alaska Harvest Company, Altered States Extraction, excuse me, manufacturer, on that motion, Mr. Jaime. Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deshek.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we have approved the products. We still have the motion to approve license 22929, Altered States Extraction LLC, a new marijuana concentrate manufacturing facility with delegation. On that motion, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deshek.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it is 4 o'clock. We have a good set of ownership transfer applications that shouldn't take very long. So I suggest that we start pouring through those. So the first one is ownership transfer application, license 10254, Canabaska. This is tab 23. Is there anybody online from Canabaska?
Dana Waltzine, attorney for Smotty Warden, the licensee, and Smotty is on the phone. Smotty, you there?
I'm here. This is Smotty Warden, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for transfer of the ownership of a retail marijuana store in the municipality of Anchorage from Alaska Sense, doing business as Canabaska, to Claw Sim, LLC, doing business as Canabaska. There is a objection period, which does not end until June 25th. We're still pending the local government. They are compliant with DOL response. We're still pending a few others, as well as a background. There have been no objections noted as of May 28th of 2020. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Sorry, I'm trying to catch up. Yeah, move to approve the delegation, license number 10254, Nebraska. Transfer of ownership.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, so if I understand this correctly, basically it's the same owner, just changing the name from Alaska Sense LLC to Claw Sim LLC. Same ownership and same address, just I guess.
Through the chair, this is
Ms.
Jana.
Wilson.
That's kind of correct. So what happened was when Smotty started this business, I wasn't involved. I wasn't representing her, and so the corporate structure wasn't exactly the way that I would have advised it. What we're doing is we're segregating out the licenses, and you'll see some more of these transfers for her in August. We're segregating out each license so that it's in its own entity. So Smotty is still the 100% owner, but the new entity will only own one license per company.
Okay, and part of the delegation, I assume, is does each of this have to go through the municipality of Anchorage process as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Every
Okay.
year, we have to file a marijuana transfer application through the municipality. We have to meet with community council, which is happening 2 weeks from now. So yeah, there's a whole nother process for the meeting.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions from any of the board members?
None here.
Okay, so absent any question, there is a motion to approve the ownership transfer application for Canabasca license 10254 with delegation. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Deschek?
Yeah.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now down to tab 24. And this is license 10890. Is a retail marijuana store, Kololo Oceanside, in Anchorage. Is there anybody online for license 10890?
Yes, Jan Waltine, attorney, handling this transfer, and Cole Hollister is also on the phone as well, and it's Pacololo.
Pacololo. Can you tell me who's also online?
I think, Cole Hollister is online, and Travis might be online. Travis Smith? And maybe he's not, but Cole, can you say hi? Yes.
I do not see a Mr. Hollister on the list anyway.
Yeah, he's a member of Pacololo Management Services. I asked him to be on the phone in case you had a question about the 0%.
Hi, this is Cole. I'm on the line. I'm sorry, I was on another call.
Oh, thank you, Cole.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to ask a question about that, but we will proceed here in order. So, Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer controlling interest of TMT LLC doing business as Pacololo Oceanside, which holds a retail marijuana store license within the municipality. Transfer involves a change of ownership percentages from these folks, which have 25, 25, 25, 25, and Pacololo Management at 0, to Mr. Stevens at 33 1/3, Michael Ward 33 1/3, Travis Smith 33 1/3, and Pacololo Management Services at 0. If I said that correctly, we are still waiting on a few fire marshal response to EC, but and we're pending on a DOR. No creditor responses are listed. And we have no objections at this point. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the license transfer, license number 10890, Pacololo Oceanside.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay. So, Ms. Welsine, if I read this
Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference. There are 48 participants in the conference.
Listed, because they're not really owners, but they're managing the operations, and so Harriet and Erica decided that to go ahead and list them as licensees as a 0% ownership. And Jason, if I misstated anything, please jump in, and Cole, if I misstated anything, please jump in.
Mr. Brandeis.
Yeah, thanks. I'm here on the line. Jana's recitation of the facts is largely correct. the regulations require for an LLC, if there's any change in the manager of an LLC, that has to be reported as a change of ownership. And the manager of an LLC does not necessarily have to be the owner of an LLC. So in this case, Pacololo was listed as the manager of the LLC, and that was reported to the Department of the Division of Corporations. So they were listed on the license because they are the manager of the LLC, but they are not owners. So they were listed with a 0% ownership.
Okay. And so, Pacololo Management Services, that's Mr. Hollister. But then down below that on the MJ17 form, it lists Howard Hollister, Tyler Hollister, and Kenine Hollister as the owners of Pacololo Management Services. So what is Mr. Hollister's role, even though he's listed there?
So he's one of the owners of Pacololo Management Services. So any natural person of an LLC that has any interest in a marijuana company has to be listed as a licensee on that form. So all three of those gentlemen that you just laid out with the last name Hollister, they make up Pacololo Management Services.
Okay. And so you introduced Cole Hollister, but I see Howard, Tyler.
Oh, I'm sorry. He goes by Cole, but his legal name is Howard. I always forget that.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very confusing that you were going to have a name of a Hollister that didn't show up as part owner of the company.
Yeah, I never call him Howard. I think Cole is his middle name, so that's what he goes by Cole.
Okay. All right. I don't know that I'm not more confused, but I'm not necessarily clear. Anyway, is there any other questions from board members? Okay, hearing none. The motion is to approve the license transfer for Pacololo Oceanside retail marijuana store with delegation. Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Deschuk?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much. And the next one is...
Thank you.
License 13279, tab 25, the Mason Jar retail store. Is there anybody online from the Mason Jar LLC?
Yes, sir. Dennis Levine here.
Dennis, okay. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer the controlling interest of the Mason Jar LLC doing business as the Mason Jar LLC, which holds a retail marijuana store in the city and borough of Juneau. Transfer involves a change of ownership percentage from Mr. Dennis Levine at 50% and a Kenneth Rivest at 50% to Dennis Levine at 100%. Looks like everything seems to be in line. We've got compliance in most everything here. There's no creditor responses that are listed. Background check is good. No objections received as of this date. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve license transfer for license number 13279, the Mason Jar.
Okay. You did not say delegation, so you didn't include anything there?
I did not, but it sounded like there wasn't any delegation.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to approve the transfer. Is there any questions from the board to the applicants?
This is Jaime.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes. Is Kenneth Rivest on the line by chance? Not hearing them. Like I said, my only concern is when it's going from two people, from two owners to one owner, and we don't have the owner that's divesting, who knows the actual reason? So I'd prefer to have both parties present prior to making a decision like this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so on the motion to approve the ownership transfer for license 13279 Mason Jar LLC, Mr. Dushek.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next one on the list is tab 26, High North LLC, standard marijuana cultivation facility in Houston. Is there anybody online from High North LLC?
This is Jason Heilig, Heilig, and I am the owner of High North.
Okay, Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer the ownership of a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the city of Houston from AK Funding LLC, doing business as AK Funding LLC, to High North LLC, doing business as High North LLC. Looks like everything has been compliant, or everything's been compliant or no protest. Matsuburo waived their protest. No creditors listed, and background check is complete. No objections have also been received. Over.
Okay, are there any questions or is there a motion?
Yeah, move to approve license transfer, license number 13588, High North LLC.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from the board or the applicant? Okay. So Mr. Heilig, this is basically a transfer ownership from you to you and just changing corporate name. Is that correct?
No, I do not own AK Funding LLC. It is the previous owner of the license transferring it to me. I have been basically working for them for a year running this facility, and so the decision was made to transfer it into my name under my company.
Okay. I guess then to the director, who is the current owner of AK Funding LLC?
It should be Monty and Kathy Hess, Hess.
Through the chair, that's correct. That's what I see here. James and Kathleen Hess.
I'm sorry. Yeah, James is his legal name. Goes by Monty.
Okay. Okay. That's not always clear on these transfers because all it shows is the corporate name and not the owner. So I didn't know whether you were that owner and just changing corporate name. That's why I asked. Are there any other questions from board members?
This is Jaime. Same question. Are the Hesses online by chance?
Yes, James Hess is here.
Okay, James?
Yes, sir. Just out of curiosity, why are you selling out or selling?
Oh, kind of a long story, but I'm basically a businessman, and I thought this was an interesting field to get into, so I plunked down the money, jumped through the hoops, got the license, but didn't have a real good idea of what I was doing. Was doing okay. Mr. Heilig came along and offered to help me out, and he's been doing very well, and now I've just turned 63 and decided that I don't have a passion for it, and I need to move on to other things.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So on the motion to approve the license ownership transfer for license 13588 High North LLC, Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Dushek?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that takes care of that. Thank you very much for being online.
Yes, thank
the
you.
next one is tab 27, LBS LLC, Standard Marijuana Cultivation Facility. Is there anybody online from LBS LLC?
Dan Wilson, attorney. Okay, Dan Wilson, attorney for the transferor RDA Enterprises, and Casey just introduced himself, and he's the owner of LBS LLC.
Okay, and that was Casey who?
Wilkins.
Okay. So, quickly, Ms. Welsing, you are representing who will be the new owners or the past owners?
Nope, the past owners.
Past owners. And Mr. Wilkins is the current owner, will become the current owner?
He'll become the new owner, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer the ownership of a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the municipality of Anchorage from RDA Enterprise LLC, doing business as Puffin AK, to the new owner, LBS LLC, doing business as LBS LLC. Of note is the objection period ends not until June 25th, and local government is still pending. However, everything else looks like, we're still pending the background check, but there have been no objections as of May 28, 2020. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve license transfer per license number 13614.
With delegation, this is Municipality of Anchorage.
Yes, with delegation. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from board members? Okay. I was waiting for Mr. Jaime to ask if the previous owners are there besides their attorney.
No, yeah, with Mr. Welty in there, I'm happy.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'll do a better
Spoken like a true police officer that believes all lawyers.
I will do a better job in the future of getting the transferor to be on the phone, because I will work on that.
Okay, that's just a joke. I'm having a bad day or a good day. Okay, so we have any other questions for the persons involved in the ownership transfer for license 13614? Okay, so the motion is to approve with delegation the license transfer of license 13614, I guess, to LBS LLC with delegation. Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Dushek?
Yeah.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah.
And I'm a yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on to tab 28, license 19204, Mikey's Place, a standard marijuana cultivation facility. Is there anybody online from Mikey's Place LLC?
This is Jessica Smith with the law offices of Lance Wells, and I believe that Eubanks is also on the line, licensee.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Eubanks, you're online?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer the controlling interest of Mikey's Place LLC, doing business as Mikey's Place LLC, which holds a standard marijuana cultivation facility license in the Matsu Borough. The transfer will involve the change in ownership percentage from Mr. Eubanks at 50% and of Peter Walsh at 50% to 100% for Mr. William Eubanks. Still pending some local government response, but we show compliant with fire marshals. We're pending a few others, including background, but we've had no objections as of May 28th. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve license transfer for license number 19204, Mikey's Place, with delegation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime. Just the same
Mr.
question. Is Peter Walsh on the line by chance? All right, thank you.
It doesn't appear so. Okay, any other questions? Okay, the motion is to approve the ownership change for license 19204, Mikey's Place LLC. Motion is to approve with delegation. Mr. Jaime?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Dishak?
Yeah.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, as long as the next one is also Mikey's Place, we'll do that and then probably adjourn for the day or recess for the day. This is a license conversion application for license 19204 Mikey's Place LLC. Current license type is a standard marijuana cultivation facility. The new license type will be limited marijuana cultivation facility. Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application to convert the license type of Mikey's Place LLC to in the Matsu Borough from a standard marijuana cultivation facility to a limited marijuana cultivation facility. And looks like we have a few things pending. Fire marshal background check. No objections received as of May 28th. Over.
Is there a motion?
No, it's on the same property. Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I'm trying to grab the.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Schulte.
Is
there a motion, Mr. Schulte?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the correct document. Okay, so move to approve the license conversion for license number 19204, Mikey's Place.
If I may interject through the chair before you make a motion, this one comes with a special request from our offices and the licensee that you might make a similar delegation to some of those that we had seen earlier. If I may take 2 minutes to explain.
Sure.
Okay, so at the time that this cultivation was licensed, it was projected to have 594 square feet under cultivation. The license was initiated almost 2 years ago and finally came to the point of having the inspection and receiving their license from enforcement on February 14th on Valentine's Day. I had gone out to Mikey's Place as a consultant after they became credentialed into Metric and had all of their delegations lifted. We're ready to put plants and tags and seeds into the inventory and observed that their initial operating plan, as it had outlined the specific arrangements of tables and plants, as well as a few other minor details, required an MJO2 change prior to having enforcement come out for the inspection. So at that time, we effectuated an MJO2 and MJO4 change, wherein the premises was more clearly and accurately defined and described with the arrangements of tables, going from a projected 594 square feet to the actual 328 square feet that they have under canopy there today. This MJO2 and MJO4 change was effectuated before enforcement came out for the initial inspection in February, and they are out now and have been under 500 square feet under canopy since the time of their licensing on February 14th. During that consultation time, it became evident that not only was an MJO2 and MJO4 change required before the inspection occurred, but it also came to my attention that Mr. Walsh was wanting to discontinue his partnership with Mikey's Place, and that we would need to have the transfer occur, and that the change in the operating plan and premises diagram would also warrant a conversion in the license type. All of that was submitted and turned in with the intent of hopefully not having to pay $7,600 in renewal fees for a basin that is just now yielding their first harvest. I think he harvested 2 weeks ago and just got labs back. Hopefully we'll have see some sales going through. But the actual license itself for the standard cultivation doesn't expire until August 31st. I have all of the renewal paperwork ready to rock and roll, whether it's under standard or limited for this licensee now. But we assert that the licensee should not be required to pay renewal fees for a standard cultivation facility, since they're going to convert to a limited cultivation prior to the August 31st date wherein their license actually expires. We understand that renewal paperwork is due to be complete, or it is delinquent on or before the last date of this month, or rather the 1st of July. However, the licensing office won't call the pile complete or even check it in until both fees and paperwork are in. It appears as though the objection from the local government won't run, that timetable won't run until July 8th, which is after the deadline. So we're asking for we're asking for the board to grant the conversion of this license from standard to limited, and when they do that, to also grant exception or special delegation for this license to either submit the renewal application documents and fees for a limited prior to the July 1st deadline, or to waive late fees for renewal fees paid for a limited between the July 8th period and before August 31st, if that makes sense.
Ms. Wilson or Mr. Klinkhart, any comments or problems with what has been stated here by Ms. Smith?
Director Klinkhart to the chair. I absolutely. I think that if the board is okay with changing it from a standard to a limited, I think that given that circumstance, that the board, I would recommend that the board consider either foregoing that cost. Whatever would be easiest for the licensee given the circumstances. I certainly don't want them to pay more than what they're actually own or are going to be using. And I think that the most appropriate license should be simply paid on what the appropriate fee is. Unless there's something legal, and that's where I would defer to Ms. Wilson. Over.
Ms. Wilson.
Well, I don't see anything in the regulations right now, but that doesn't mean I'm not missing it. I think it would be permissible, Mr. Chair. If I made an error, I will tell you in the future so we don't repeat it.
Okay.
Repeat it, excuse me.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Schulte, yes, who's that?
This is Jane.
Jane Sawyer.
Yes, I just want to remind you, the board, that we still have a local government, the background check and the fire marshal pending on this. It doesn't mean that we're going to hear back from them in time for us to convert this license into limited before June 31st or July 1st, whichever that deadline is. So if you're going to do something, I think it should be to waive the $1,000 late fee, rather than converting this license right now into a limited.
Yes, that was...
So the appropriate motion would be to approve the license conversion with delegation and a waiver of the $1,000 late fee for the renewal application. Is that pretty much what I'm hearing being asked?
That's correct. Yes. Thank you, Jane.
Mr. Schulte, does that help?
Yes, it does. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I mean,
so that would
get
be,
the licensee where they want
Chair,
to
I
be.
can't make the motion, so that would be.
But yeah, that will be my motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Jaime.
Mr. Jaime?
The only question or concern I have is for this the application we're looking at now. The other owner, Mr.
Walsh.
Mr. Walsh is not on that application, and considering we just approved, the license transfer, I think that he needs to be on that initial application.
Mr. Walsh is on the, you're referring to the conversion application?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh has signed and submitted an MJOO on the conversion application. That was part of our corrections. So you will see on tab 29, 3 links down in your left-hand column, MJOO. If you scroll through Mr. Eubank, go down, you'll see an MJOO on file for Mr. Walsh. That was addressed during our corrections.
Yeah, I'm still looking for that correction.
If you look under the MJOO application, and the first one is Mr. Eubanks, and then there is one there from Mr. Walsh. You see that, Mr. Jaime?
I do not, sir.
Okay, so
I see the MJOO. I'm looking for the one from Mr. Walsh.
So if you go, you just scroll down, you'll see William Scott Eubanks and all of his certifications and his signature, and then you will find another one there for Peter Joseph Walsh and all of that, initial of that and his signatures.
No, my paperwork, I can't seem to find it, but I believe there, Mr. Chairman.
There's 6 pages, and so Peter Walsh would be in page 6, 5, and 4.
And we will have Mr. Walsh sign the transfer, the renewal application as well, with the understanding that he has not been and will not be fully removed from this license until the delegation has been lifted. There's no bad blood or issues between the licensees. He just has personal reasons for stepping out.
And I found a letter. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Sawyer. Trying to recognize voices.
Thank you. And I guess I just have one more question, and this is in regards to the transfer, actually. I see that Department of Labor, is it employment security is non-compliant? Are you guys working on that?
There are no entities, but I'll follow up with Mr. Eubanks.
Okay, sounds good. Because, yeah, this is going to be this is a tricky one for sure, being that there's a transfer, but at the same time there's a conversion and then a renewal going on. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so on the motion for the license conversion for license 19204, Mikey's Place, from a standard marijuana cultivation to a limited cultivation with delegation and with a waiver of the late fee for the renewal application for Mikey's Place, Mr. Jaime.
No.
Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that motion passes 4-1. Okay, I'm showing it's 4:34. We will start with the license renewal applications, tab 30, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I want to thank you all. When we broke for lunch, I wasn't sure we were going to get this far, and so I think tomorrow may be a little better day, a little quicker, and we may not have to go as late. I appreciate everybody on the phone being there and active. We haven't had to table anything. So unless there's any other thing that somebody wants to say, I think we will recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is there any comments or questions before we do that?
Nope.
Hearing none, you all enjoy your dinner, and we'll see you at 9 o'clock, or hear you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Good night.
Have a nice evening. Good night.
Yep.
The chairperson has disconnected.